Hey guys, it's your girl Kizzy Rock, and yes, Kizzy Rock is my birth given name. Happy Wednesday. Want to say hey to all my subscribers. New as well as season. Got a word for you. Tap in. Happy Wednesday, guys. So today I'm responding to another email from one of my good sis. Guys, if I have not responded to your email, either from just a reply or making a recording and then sending you the recording, it's just that I haven't gotten to your email yet. I promise you I'm not ignoring you. Don't let trauma triggers make you think that. The enemy is tricky when it comes down to trauma triggers. I'm not ignoring you. I'm not abandoning you. I just haven't got to your email yet. I'm still backed up from last week. All right, guys. So my good sis here, she is 38. So her parents had got caught up in the crack era, back in the days or whatever. So they both were addicted to crack. The system got involved and we're going to put her and her brother into foster home. But her auntie, which is the mother's sister, stepped up to the plate, raised both children, but it was a very, very traumatizing upbringing, even though she feels that it would still have been better than foster home. She felt like maybe they both could have been traumatizing, but she would rather have been with her family and not separated from her brother. Make a long story short, she said, the entire family is toxic. The aunt has been married, I think she said 4 times, and it's just toxic domestic violence, et cetera, just very drama filled, and just her aunt is toxic, is what she said. She's toxic, but she loves her, especially because the way she stepped up and raised her. So she views her aunt in a very high regard, meaning it's almost like there are things that her aunt says to her or kind of just interferes with her life. And she knows that it's toxic because she's now in her healing journey, but she still struggles with telling her aunt to basically butt out because she still feels obligated, if you will. And the aunt has ruined several relationships and potentially could be ruining a situation where she says she's standing for is it prodigal? So let's chat. Sis, I had to do a little more research on the prodigal. I mean, I've heard people say this, and I know this is part of the Bible, things like that. But a lot of people are talking about it now in the sense of standing for your husband or your wife who have left and strayed off. I had to do a little more research before I make this recording. I'm more knowledgeable in the sense of there's a lot of people talking about kingdom spouses, right? Partnerships, things like that, but not so much of the prodigal. Am I saying that word right? Is it prodigal? I think it's prodigal. Lord, forgive me. All right. So that is your situation. You have been married, I think you said for 2 years, and your husband has stepped out. You don't know if he's in another relationship, but he left you guys, and you know that your husband loves you. You love him, but he himself came from a very, very traumatic upbringing. He's been molested. He's been violated. So he has a lot of trauma himself. However, you feel that without a doubt God has called you to stand firm, to pray behind the scenes and wait until you pray and help bring your husband back into God. All right, so now this is everything that she broke down to me, guys. This is not my opinion. All right, so first thing, sis, kudos to you. Because again, when people came from very traumatic upbringings and things like that, to take the step to try to want better and do better is not easy. Most people conform to the way that they have always known, right? So you're not making any excuses. You know your parents were toxic. You know your auntie is toxic, right? So you know that. That's a great thing because most people can't even see past that. They just see it as normal. I get it that you have high respect for your auntie. I think that's a wonderful thing. The fact that she stepped up and raised you guys to the best of her ability, to the best, because people can only do what they can do, right? So if the whole family is toxic and she herself came from that toxic generations and things like that, I mean, people can only do what they can do. This is why I also tell people sometimes too, I'm not saying just forgive the people or your parents or whoever raised you if they didn't get it right. I mean, it's more so less of just understanding that people can only teach you what they have experienced. Not saying if it's right or wrong, it's just that it's ignorance. They don't know. So learning to try to do something a different way so you can be sure that your children or the children coming behind you do not experience that same type of unhealthy foundation is key. Rather than waddle in it and conform to it, you're making a difference. Well, speaking of that, the difficult part with that is regardless of how much you love or you respect your aunt, right? You can still do that without allowing her into your relationship or into your marriage. You know, often we used to hear things like, just in general, you would hear people say things like, mainly men, you would hear men say things like, stop taking advice from your single friends, or stop taking advice from your toxic mama who can't even hold a relationship, or who can't even stay married, or whatever, right? You would hear that. So I think sometimes, a lot of the times, people tend to think that men would just say that because they know maybe the older person, the older lady could put them on the game, which is true, which I know some of that is true. But on the flip side of that, it's true. If you really think about it, and remove the toxic men who may have that mindset just because he don't want you to, get put on the game, right? If you really separate that and think about it, it's true. How can someone, respectfully to your aunt here, right? How can someone who's been in 4 different marriages and now currently in a toxic marriage, I think you said she had 6 children from 6 different guys, right? And I'm not being disrespectful here at all, right? I'm just breaking down what you said. How can this person tell you how you should be in your marriage and what you should do? Think about it. If they can't fix their own situation, if you've been through 4 different men and you're still with someone toxic, then what does that say? There's a common denominator somewhere. And again, that's no disrespect. It's just more about taking accountability. It's more about elevating and understanding now so we can do better. So when you're, okay, again, I couldn't say much about the prodigal. I had to really go and do some research on that. But here's the thing. Let it be a prodigal, or let it be God have exposed you or downloaded to you about a kingdom spouse or purpose partner, things like that, right? Here's my belief, and this is just my opinion. The Holy Spirit have to guide you with that, not a person. Because see, again, a person cannot even grasp what it is that the Holy Spirit have downloaded to you, have shown you, have given you revelation, all that stuff is specifically between you and the Holy Spirit. When you start bringing people in, right? Now, people are going to give you their opinion based on maybe what they've been through, right? People are going to give you their opinion based on their own toxic ways. Remember, when people have very toxic situations, let it be a marriage or maybe they're themselves, they're just a very toxic, unhealed person. See, again, healing hurts. So what most people do is they tend to deflect. So they won't sit and fix their situation, let it be their marriage or even just themselves, right? They won't go through a healing process because, again, healing hurts. Healing requires you to go back and confront all of your traumas, all of them, sit in it, to feel it, so God can help process you through it the correct way. There's no covering up. But most people tend to avoid it because it hurts And then they deflect. So now I don't want to sit here and fix my toxic marriage or my toxic relationship. I don't want to sit here and fix my toxic, traumatized self because it hurts and I don't even know where to start. So instead, I'm going to go over here and mess with somebody else's relationship. I'm going to go and butt my head in my children's marriages, right? I'm going to go over here and tell my daughter who she should marry and who she should not marry. I'm going to go in here and tell my son, this girl is not such and such because she doesn't do this, this, and that. So they involve themselves in other people's marriages or relationships. And it's more or less about them not wanting to sit and fix their own. So they have to do something. Traumatized people have to do something. This is why it's hard for traumatized people to sit still and don't do anything. So instead, they're involved in everybody else's stuff because it deflects them from the pain that they're really feeling. So as much as you love your aunt, sis, if the Holy Spirit is convicting you, obviously, because you're recognizing some things from what you said, then you're going to have to make a conscious decision to love your aunt, yes. But you're going to have to understand, which I always talk about. I mean, this just has always been my personal life. But you're going to have to understand the art of privacy, right? Not secrecy, but privacy. I don't think a lot of people grasp how peaceful the art of privacy is. You don't have all different opinions coming in, even toxic ones from your own aunts, right? From your own friends who maybe haven't just figured their lives out. You don't have all these different opinions coming in. The Holy Spirit could be telling you, yes, stand for this man, pray for him, right? The Holy Spirit have given you the revelation that he has this trauma and he is traumatized and this is why he's doing it. So I don't want you to focus on the fact that he's hurting you. Instead, I want you to focus on the fact of why it's happening. It's not you, it's him. Okay, the Holy Spirit is giving you this revelation. But now if you go and tell just your average person next door that, they're going to think you're insane. So you're meaning to tell me that you refuse to date, right? You refuse to get back out here. You refuse to divorce this fool. And you sitting at home cutting up mushrooms. Do you even cut mushrooms? You're sitting at home cutting mushrooms and praying behind the scenes and praying that God can help clip him up basically to deal with his trauma, allow God to heal him, right? Pray for God, for his relationship with God. So once he's healed through the Holy Spirit, et cetera, then he comes back to you, et cetera, et cetera. All right. If the Holy Spirit tells you that, which he has in your case, how many natural fleshly people will understand that? So now you got your auntie coming in there wanting to fight your husband because he's hurt you. She's telling you to go ahead and find a dude down the street because he got more money than your husband. Your co-worker's telling you you're crazy because she saw your husband, with the side chick at the movie theater. You got all these different opinions coming in. And now you can't even think clearly. So everything that the Holy Spirit downloads to you, you can't even receive it, right? So at one point, if you're in the art of silence and nobody is locked in and up in your business about what God has you standing for or blase, blase, your mind is so peaceful that you can hear the Holy Spirit and it can sit. But when you got all these different opinions, when you get the download, all it does is get entangled with everybody else's fleshly opinion. So it probably is going to be more about conviction. I always say, for me, a lot of the things just in general in my life, it has always had to be obedience over emotions. Obedience over emotions, meaning whatever God is instructing you to do, whatever God is telling you to do, even if it requires other people's feelings to be hurt, even if it requires your own little feelings to be hurt, obedience have to trump emotions when you are standing for spiritual things. It's a spiritual assignment. It's not a fleshly assignment. And again, I don't know all the ins and outs. I mean, I don't know, what's going on with your marriage and all this stuff. All I know is like what you tell me. I can just give you my opinion when I'm speaking more from a spiritual standpoint, right? I will suggest, like I always say, please just make sure you are standing for something or for someone because you've heard from God clearly. Did I miss anything? So just allow the Holy Spirit just to guide you, right? Because sometimes too, because you'll be breaking that generational cycle. Let's just say, for example, God does get a hold of your husband, clip him up. I like to use that term, clip him up, and really work on him, right? Work on all these, because listen, you're talking about a man who's been violated. Do you know first, trauma is trauma, period, right? Trauma is trauma, but do you know the intensity of a man, anybody, but a man being violated like that? That's trauma that only God can fix. See, again, when we love people, when we just feel like if we love on people a certain kind of way, our love, our care will help transform that person. I have, let me tell you something. I can write a whole book with probably 35 chapters on that topic, right? Because remember, as chosen people, we're gifted like that. We're gifted to love on people. We're gifted to pour into people. People are very attracted to our spirits because our spirits are pure. So we tend to attract a certain type of people, right? But through elevation, you will learn that you can't operate like that anymore because people will suck your energy out. So when you're trying to stand for somebody because you're trying to fix them yourself, I have a friend who's going through that same thing right now with her husband, right? And it hurts her because you see your man suffering. You know his traumas. So you want to do everything and you want to love him the right way, even when he's not treating you the right way. You just want to love on him because you feel like, okay, he didn't have this love in his childhood, right? He was violated. He was this, he was that. So if I love on him because he's never experienced that through his own parents, then he can finally feel love. Sadly, a lot of times through that same type of trying to love on them, you turn around and get your heart break because they're still not healed. Only God can heal them. So when they leave you, when they cheat on you, when they beat you, when they do this, and that, it's coming through the vessels of that trauma. So it's not about you. This is why sometimes you can see, and let's be clear here, right? You have women who are abusive to men as well. I just want to make sure I say that. But have you ever seen a guy who gets in a rage and he fights his woman? It's like he blacks out, but he fights her. But then it's almost like when he does whatever he do, he bursts out crying, or like he'll run out the door and he's crying. Okay, so it's not that sometimes people want to hurt you. It's a trauma trigger. It's a trauma response. And because they're not healed, whatever's going on, right? Let's just say the reason why he fought her. And first of all, there's no excuse, right? I'm trying to make a point here. Let's just say he came home. And then the reason why he spazzed out, I don't know. She may have been cooking and he just spazzed out on her. Now he done did what he do. Now he burst out crying. Now he ran out the house. And now finally when she has a conversation with him or he comes back or whatever, he heard about a rumor that she was cheating. Well, if his parents abandoned him, right? And this is a situation with a personal friend of mine, right? His parents abandoned him. They left him on a step. Then he was raised to believe that the people who raised him was actually his parents all his life. It wasn't until he got into his late 20s, early 30s that he realized that was never even his parents. So there's a lot of rejection, abandonment issues, things like that, meaning you don't trust. So now you hear a rumor that your wife is sleeping around or creeping around on you. Do you think that spaz out is solely about that rumor? It's a It's not even facts. Nobody showed you a video. It's a rumor. That rumor opened it triggered that trauma from when he was abandoned and left on that step and eaten by ants for a couple of days. And because most men are not even taught to express themselves, that stuff was never even expressed. No one even caught it to get him counseling, to try to catch it, when he was young or whatever. No, he grew up. He became a man believing that, and I'm not making any excuses for him, right? Because we have to all be accountable for our own traumas. We have to all make a decision to go heal. We have to all make a decision to seek God, to seek therapy, whatever that thing is for you. Express it so it can leave your spirit. Let it be. If you're writing in your journal and burning papers, if you're walking in the wilderness, not wilderness, well, I guess you might as well say, right? Or if you're walking in your forest or whatever, and you're speaking that thing out loud, just you and God, it has to leave your spirit. But it's suppressed there. So either you're drinking it away, you're hitting your marijuana, whatever, sex, porn, sweets, food, cigarettes, right? You're just suppressing and suppressing and suppressing. And again, this is why most people don't heal, because when you go through a healing process, that stuff that you're using to cover it up, that 21 gallon bucket of cookies and cream ice cream from your sweet addiction, right? Or sitting at a buffet all day long because your food addiction, or binge watching porn when you're supposed to be at work on these people's computer. All that stuff will be removed and uncovered, and you will be sent back to face those very same traumas raw. How many people can do that? Or want to do that, I should say, right? So this is why a lot of people do not go through a healing process, run from it, or even when they start it, they just don't finish it because, listen, it's extensive, but it's worth it. So keep praying, sis. Allow God to just guide you. But it's so important that whatever conviction you get, right? Whatever conviction you get, if God says, shut your auntie out, and he may just say, listen, just shut her out from the conversation. Meaning if she's called, let's just say she called your phone and be like, hey, what's up with such and such? Change the subject. Or just have a meeting of the minds and let her know, listen, I just don't want to talk about that anymore because it's kind of unnerving at times, or it's kind of, I don't want to have that energy, right? So y'all can still have a great time. Go do what you do. But we don't need to be having a conversation about my marriage or my this, and your whole situation is toxic, right? God will lead you to people who actually